Welcome to Daily Red Devil for all of your latest Manchester United transfer news and talk. We've got a massive show for you guys today, but before we jump into that, please do me one small favour, smash a like on today's video. Let's try and see 500 likes on this episode. And if this is your first time watching, please also subscribe to the channel. Right, let's get straight on into it then. So, obviously I want to react a little bit to Manchester United's 0-0 draw with Aston Villa yesterday. I want to talk a little bit about Erik ten Hag. I want to talk a bit about some quotes from David Ornstein about the future of Erik ten Hag. It's probably going to be a mainly manager-focused show, so if you're, not interested in the manager stuff, obviously I appreciate some people are sick to death of it, then yeah, no problem. But what I want to ask you this morning is this. I want you to give me your thoughts on Erik ten Hag. Should he stay as the Manchester United manager? Get in the comment section now. Give me some context. If you want him gone, who should replace him? Give me something. Give me something to read. Give me something to digest. Don't just say Erik ten Hag out and then give no, further explanation. I want to know. I want to know everything that your brain is telling you this morning. So get in the comment section now and let me know. I'll look forward to reading through all the comments. I'll react to some of them. So yeah, make sure you go and do that. Okay, so obviously yesterday's game, very boring. I think either team can't really come away feeling hard done by. I think a draw was probably the fair result. Obviously, Bruno Fernandes hitting the bar. What could have been? Yeah, I don't know. I'll be honest, I didn't think we were going to get a draw against Aston Villa. I thought that they were going to score lots of goals. I thought it would be a really open game. But in all fairness to Erik ten Hag, he changed the setup. He put Johnny Evans and Maguire as the centre-back partnership, which I actually thought worked really well. And you know what? He played a lot more pragmatic. He played a lot more like what Erik ten Hag did in his first season. And I think that's one thing that people seem to forget about, right? Erik ten Hag's first season as the Manchester United manager, he played pragmatic football. He almost parked the bus at times, and he relied on moments of magic or counter-attacking football. It was only when we went into the second season, which was obviously last year, that he said, you know what? This isn't how I want to play football. This isn't what I did at Ajax. I'm now going to try and play, the modern passing out from the back. He brought in Onana, ball playing centre-backs. He tried to change things up. And it didn't really work. And we finished 8th. And we had a really poor season. And he's still obviously continuing to play that style of football now. But yesterday was the first time this season that the style of play kind of reverted back to how we played in the first season. Does that make sense? And I have mixed feelings about that because I've said this to you many, many times before. I think Manchester United as a counter-attacking team who play pragmatic football would finish top 4 every single season without a shadow of a doubt. I'm confident of that. But if you want Manchester United to play this modern day style of football that, the Man Cities play, the Liverpools play, the Arsenals play, I think with the set of players that we've got and the fact that they haven't ever done that before, I think you're lucky to finish in the top 8, to be honest. Because the thing with that style of football is it takes a long time to implement it, Obviously, Liverpool, people will say, oh, well, Arne Slot's come in and he's done amazing. Liverpool were already playing that style of football. So all they did was bring in a manager who already played the same style of football as what Jurgen Klopp did. So it was easy. Does that make sense? Whereas with Erik ten Hag, for the last decade, we haven't had a style of football. And he came into Manchester United, what was it, in 2022? The first 2 games of the season, we played Brentford and Brighton 2 years ago. We lost 4-0 to Brentford, trying to pass out from the back. And we lost, I think, at home 2-1 to Brighton. And after that, Erik ten Hag said, you know what? I clearly can't play, the Ajax style, the passing out from the back with this team. So he went to a more pragmatic style. And we got 3rd and we won the League Cup. And people were saying that he's an amazing manager. Amazing world-class manager, that was being brandished around. But if you actually look back at some of the games in the first year of Erik ten Hag, the football was like what it was like against Aston Villa yesterday. It was pragmatic, it was moments of magic, it was Marcus Rashford scoring goals, shooting from outside the box. It wasn't pretty. And effectively what he's trying to do now is he's trying to implement this style of football that we all wanted him to implement when he came here. And he's only had 1 year of that, to be fair. People keep telling me, he's been here for 3 years, it's time to go. Well, that's not actually factually correct. This is the beginning of Erik ten Hag's 3rd year. He came in 2022. His first game was against Brighton at the beginning of September 2022. We're now in October 2024. So he's been here for 2 years and 1 month. 3 years would be next summer. Does that make sense? So I don't know. It's a little bit difficult one. It's a difficult one, and I'm not by any means defending Erik ten Hag. I'm just kind of giving you what I think is a fair analysis of the situation at Manchester United, and I will stand by this. If we play pragmatic football, relying on moments of magic, defense, a very, very low block, like we did yesterday, no high line, I reckon we get top 4 easily. But the problem is, right, we'll do that, and then the same fans who want him sacked will say, this isn't the Manchester United way, blah, blah, blah. Manchester United haven't had a way for a decade since Sir Alex Ferguson left. Like, what is the Manchester United way? We're effectively trying to find our identity now, and we're going through that moment of change where we've gone from a team that had no identity to a team that now is trying to find its identity. The identity before was moments of magic, not play out from the back, park the bus, low block, hit on the counter-attack. That was our identity. And obviously Manchester United, INEOS and Ten Hag don't want to play football like that anymore. They want to play this expansive, free-flowing, passing out from the back, goalkeepers who can, effectively pass the ball as well as a defender can, etc., etc. And, looking at the actual situation of whether he should be sacked or not, I don't know. When I look at the situation, I honestly think that there isn't any other managers out there. I don't want Ruud van Nistelrooy. Anybody who honestly thinks that Ruud van Nistelrooy is a better manager than Erik ten Hag, like, what is that based on? Ruud van Nistelrooy's managed for 1 season at a professional level, 1. Erik ten Hag's been a manager for about 20 years, You saw the drop-off in Ajax when Erik ten Hag left Ajax, right? And people who were sat there saying, oh, well, it has to be Ruud van Nistelrooy, bring Ruud van Nistelrooy in, holding on to this hope that we bring Ruud van Nistelrooy in and everything becomes great. I think it's just a false reality. I think you're clinging on to a false narrative that Ruud van Nistelrooy is going to save the day and everything will be amazing. I just don't buy into it at all. Whereas if somebody said to me, I don't know, a Carlo Ancelotti or a Pep Guardiola or a Jurgen Klopp was going to be the next Man United manager, I think then you'd have to have a conversation. But when you look at the people that are available, and I know I keep saying this over and over again, but when you look at the managers that are available and you look at the managers that we're linked to, the current favourite is Ruud van Nistelrooy. I mean, if he wasn't an ex-Manchester United player, there wouldn't be a single person in this chat this morning who would want Ruud van Nistelrooy to be the Man United manager. If he used to play for Arsenal and he'd had 1 good season in the Eredivisie, you'd be all saying, you're having a laugh. Why the hell would we bring this guy into Manchester United? Like, I think as an assistant manager, he's great. I think it's amazing to have that experience around. But as a first-team manager, Ruud van Nistelrooy, for me, it's a no. Definitely not. I think, maybe if he went and managed for another 5 or 10 years somewhere else and did well, then maybe you'd consider it, But for me, it's a definite no. And then you look at the kind of other options that we have here. We've got Thomas Tuchel, which I think if you want to play a more defensive, back 5, pragmatic style of football, Thomas Tuchel could be a good option. But the problem with this is, the people who are screaming for Erik ten Hag to be sacked, let's say that Thomas Tuchel gets the job. He comes in, he plays a back 5, it's very defensive, it's very pragmatic. Those same people in a year or two's time will be saying, this is boring football, I don't want to watch this, I want to see more attacking, free-flowing football. Well, you're not going to get that from Thomas Tuchel. Other people, it's like Thomas Frank, Allegri, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, Roberto De Zerbi. Like, these are the kind of names that we're being linked to. And I think, if anything, the fact that there is this serious lack of options out there on the market probably is what's going to keep Erik ten Hag in his job. And the other thing as well, I put out a tweet a couple of days ago, right? And I want to kind of refresh your memory back to the summer, because I think this is probably the most important point on the managerial situation. And, I'm not one of those people who's going to sit here and scream at the camera. I try and look at things in a pragmatic way. I try and give you an honest analysis of what's actually going on, with no agenda behind it. And that's what I'm going to do right now. So, if INEOS decide after 7 Premier League games to sack Erik ten Hag, I think that makes them look very, very stupid. Now, the reason for this is, again, I'm not saying whether I want him to be sacked or not. I'm giving you my opinion on INEOS if they were to sack him. INEOS spent 2 months over the summer when we should have been signing players. We should have been planning for the next year. They spent 2 months from the FA Cup final until about September interviewing managers, speaking to Thomas Tuchel, speaking to Kieran McKenna through intermediaries, speaking to Roberto De Zerbi. They spoke to all of these managers who were available, the same set of managers who are available right now. They interviewed them. They spoke about the plans with them. And after that, they decided that the managers that were available, Tuchel, Erik ten Hag, etc., they decided that Erik ten Hag was the best one for them at that moment in time. And nothing has changed since then. We're 7 games into the season. Yes, it's been an awful start to the season. I agree with that. But it's not like Pep Guardiola's just decided he wants to come to Man United and he's waiting outside Carrington begging to be let in. It's the same set of managers who were available a month ago that are now. Remember, Erik ten Hag only signed his new contract. Let me get the new date. It wasn't very long ago. It wasn't very long ago at all. So the date was... It was in August. So it's been about 6 weeks since Erik ten Hag extended his contract. Okay? Now, the point I'm trying to make here, if INEOS now decide, 7 games into the season, that their end of season review, which took them from May until August, what's that, June, July, 3 months it took them to decide that Erik ten Hag was the best manager. 3 months of conversations, meetings, planning, analysis, looking at data. They took 3 months to come to the decision that Erik ten Hag was the best manager available on the market. If after 7 Premier League games, they turn around and say, our first big decision we had to make, which it was, this is INEOS' first big decision. Would we agree on that? We were wrong. All of these new people that we brought in, the Omar Baradas, Dave Brailsford, Dan Ashworth, they were wrong. All of these senior people we've brought in got it wrong. I mean, how stupid does that make them look? And not only does it make them look stupid, but it also means they have to pay Erik ten Hag for 3 years worth of his contract, which is apparently around £17 million. Now, whether Erik ten Hag's sacked or not, I honestly don't think it will make any difference. So I'm not going to be that upset if he gets sacked, and I won't be upset if he stays, because I honestly believe that no matter what happens, whoever the manager is, I think we're still going to be a long, long way away from being anywhere near the top for years and years and years and years. I genuinely believe that, because I think we're so far behind. And the way I look at it now is, I just think that they're very, very conscious of how the public perceive them. And under the Glazers, under Ed Woodward, they used to cave in to fan pressure. If the fans were unhappy about something, they wanted more signings, they'll go and spend 200 million on some bang average players. If the fans were unhappy with the manager, they would sack the manager. And it wasn't very formulated. It didn't feel like there was a plan in place when we were under Ed Woodward, etc. Whereas under INEOS, they're telling us that everything's going to be well thought out. There's going to be a plan, there's a process, and all the rest of it. And sacking a manager 6 weeks in, 7 Premier League games into a season, that doesn't tell me that they have a proper plan in place, Because there's no realistic option as the replacement. It's not like when Van Gaal got sacked and we all knew it was going to be Mourinho and most people said, that sounds good. It's not like you have, as I said, Nagelsmann sat outside Carrington asking to be let in, or a Pep, or a Klopp. Like, we're literally scraping round the barrel of managers at the moment. So, whether or not they go for him or not, so whether or not they sack him or not, all remains to be seen. Yeah, I don't know. I just honestly think that if they were to sack him now, it makes them look stupid. It makes them look incompetent. It makes them look like they don't know what they're doing. It makes them look like this elite team that they've put together isn't as good as they've made out, because they've effectively spent 3 months making a decision, having countless meetings, interviewing countless managers, and then 7 games into a season, they say, you know what, we messed up. And they not only messed up, but they messed up massively financially, because we've just spent, 150, 200 million on Ten Hag's players. What happens to De Ligt? If you bring in Thomas Tuchel, what happens to De Ligt? Tuchel and De Ligt, I don't think... I think Tuchel dropped De Ligt, didn't he? What happens to Onana? Does the new manager come in and say, I don't like Onana? What happens to Ugarte? What happens to all of these players, That's the problem that Manchester United have. And I always look back to Mikel Arteta, right? Mikel Arteta finished 8th, 5th and 5th as the Arsenal manager in his first 3 seasons. Remember, we've only had 2 seasons of Erik ten Hag. Erik ten Hag finished 3rd and 8th. So he's already done better than Arteta. And he's won 2 trophies. Arteta's won 1 in 6 years. Erik ten Hag's been here for 2 years. So when you look at it like that, is the football good enough? No. Is Is it acceptable to be 13th, 14th in the Premier League? No. But when you look at it from a more level-headed perspective, which I try and do on this channel, I think it's an incredibly difficult decision. And I don't think anybody can sit there, honestly, and say, you know, Erik ten Hag has to be sacked. It's the only option. Because there isn't really like light at the end of the tunnel. You know? You sack him and do what? And I know people will be like, oh, you can't just keep him because there isn't any other option. But I just honestly think that if we sack Erik ten Hag now and give Ruud van Nistelrooy the job for the rest of the season, you're kind of throwing away the season, aren't you? You're giving it a free pass. Whereas for me personally, my expectation for this year, at the beginning of the season, when I said, what do I want from this season, was to play better football. And I think we have actually played better football in some of the games this season. Against Crystal Palace, we dominated them. I haven't seen that under an Erik ten Hag side. A couple of other games I thought we actually played quite well. Yes, we lost. Obviously, Liverpool was terrible. Tottenham was terrible. But the other games this season, Brighton, I thought we played well. Obviously, we lost that game, but it was very unlucky. And I think the football has improved. Maybe not in the last couple of games, but at the beginning of the season, I thought the football was better than what we'd seen in the previous year. So that's okay. But my other expectation was to win the Europa League. And, you know, people are like, oh, we've only got 2 points in the Europa League. We're still in the position at the moment where we would qualify for the next round. Remember, the Europa League has changed and the top 24 teams qualify for the next round of the Europa League. So it's a little bit strange. And at the moment, we are in 21st. So we are still in the position where we would qualify for the next round of the Europa League. And we have played Porto, who I think was the hardest team we've got to play. We've got Fenerbahce, and then we've got some other lesser teams further down the line as well. So I'm still confident we can, you know, go far in the Europa League. That was my goal for the season, win the Europa League. That would be another trophy. That obviously means we would qualify for the Champions League. And in the Premier League, I said, I think we should be finishing in the top 8. Because the way I see it is, we're trying to form this identity of how we want to play for the future. And that's going to take time. There's going to be trial and error. There's going to be the realization that maybe some players don't suit that system. I'm thinking people like Bruno Fernandes. I'm thinking people like Marcus Rashford. You know, these types of players who are quite selfish, give the ball away, are all over the place sometimes, not in the right positions. Bruno Fernandes seems to be playing as a second striker, seems to be having free roam of the game. And I think it's going to take time for Manchester United to identify which players are actually going to work in this modern day style of football. So yeah, that's my take on it. Obviously, I'd be interested to see what you guys all think. In relation to David Ornstein, he has said a few things. So David Ornstein has said that apparently Simone Inzaghi was surprised by reports saying he was offered the Manchester United job. David Ornstein says that he doesn't even speak English. David Ornstein has also said that Gareth Southgate is not a contender for the United job in the summer, and he's got no information to suggest that there's a change in that stance. He says, I wouldn't expect him to be the head coach of Manchester United. So that's that. And then also David Ornstein says that the reports that Ruud van Nistelrooy is a Manchester United appointment in case Ten Hag gets sacked is simply not true. It says he was Erik Ten Hag's appointment, so there would be some conflict in interest due to loyalty issues. So effectively saying that if Erik Ten Hag was to get sacked, Ruud van Nistelrooy, in theory, would feel bad about taking the job because effectively he was hired by Erik Ten Hag. And then David Ornstein has also said, I'm not aware of them speaking to any candidates at the moment, like they did over the summer. It would be negligent of them, like any other club, to speak to other candidates if a change were So he's effectively saying at the moment they're not speaking to anybody else. And then he also says the idea that Manchester United can't afford to sack Erik Ten Hag due to financial fair play is simply not true. It will be expensive, but it is doable if it gets to that point, but they hope it doesn't get to that point. So at the moment, they want to stick with Erik Ten Hag. They want to get behind him. Whether or not that's right or wrong, I don't think there's a right or wrong answer in this one. I think there's a very convincing argument for both of them. I think there's a very convincing argument for him to be sacked, and I think there's a convincing argument for him to stay. And yeah, I mean, the poll that we've set up this morning, we've had over 300 people voting on the poll this morning. 50% of you say Erik Ten Hag in, and 50% of you say Erik Ten Hag out. So the mood is very much split at the moment. I think after game days like yesterday, people's moods are aggressive. You know, people are like, I want to win matches, and when we don't win, I think the mood's a little bit more, I can't think of the word, but I think 50-50 is kind of how I see it from like the way I'm looking at it. It might be different on other communities, on other channels. I don't know. I don't watch, I don't watch other channels, so I don't know Like, yeah, I don't know how the mood is on other channels, but 50-50 to me sounds about right. I think it is a very, very difficult situation. I think if he'd have lost badly yesterday, the pressure would have been immense. But going away and getting a point to Aston Villa, who have just beat Bayern Munich in the Champions League, I don't think that's a bad result. And going away to Porto, who beat Arsenal in the Champions League at their ground last season, I don't think is a bad result to get a draw there either. I think it's just the Premier League games that have kind of, made us look really, really bad. And, if we'd have got those goals that we deserved against Crystal Palace and Brighton hadn't got that dodgy goal at the end of the match and Xerxes hadn't stuck his foot out, we could have been like, I know it's, it's all good and well saying what could have been, but we deserve to beat Crystal Palace, I think. If we'd have beat Crystal Palace, we would be on 10 points. And if we'd have drawn against Brighton, which I feel like we deserve to do, we would have been on 11 points. We would have been in 6th place if we'd have got that goal against Crystal Palace and got the draw we deserved against Brighton. We deserve to lose against Tottenham. We deserve to lose against Liverpool. I have no, arguments to that. But the Brighton and the Crystal Palace game, we definitely didn't deserve to draw against Crystal Palace, and we definitely didn't deserve to lose against Brighton. So, yeah. And as I said, we would be in 6th place then. We would be 2 points off top 4. But instead, we're in 14th. But one thing I do want to say is this, right? Manchester United's next fixtures in the Premier League do look a little bit more kind. And I think looking at it from this perspective, I think Manchester United would be wise to give him until Christmas, to be honest, and then properly evaluate the situation. So the next Premier League games are this. You've got Brentford at home. Obviously, you have to win that. You've got West Ham away, who've been really poor so far this season, so I expect us to win that. You've got Chelsea at home. I think a win or a draw from that one. Then you've got Leicester at home. Again, we should be beating Leicester at home. And then you've got Ipswich Town away, and then Everton at home. So if you look at the next 5 games, Brentford, West Ham. So let's do it like this. So Brentford, 3 points. West Ham, I would say minimum 1 point. Chelsea, minimum 1 point. Leicester, 3 points. That puts us up to 8 points. Ipswich, 3 points. That's 11 points. And Everton, 3 points. That's 14 points there from the next, 5 games. And if we were to do that, which I would expect Manchester United to do, you'd probably be somewhere around 6th place then, I imagine. You'd be around top 4. Wouldn't be that far off, and you then go into the second half of the season, hopefully get a left back in the January window, and you push on. But obviously we'll wait and see what happens. I don't think he's going to be sacked. For those of you who really want him to be sacked today, I don't think it's going to happen. But yeah, I'm going to wrap the video up here, guys. Thank you very much for joining me on the show today. Yeah. Please do get in the comments section. Let me know your thoughts on Erik ten Hag. Should he stay? Should he go? Give me some context. Give me some narrative. Give me some information. Don't just say sack him. Tell me why he should be sacked. Tell me who they should, bring in as a replacement. I'm always interested to see. Thank you very much. Have a good day, everybody. Don't forget to drop a like, leave a comment, subscribe. I'll speak to you all later. Bye-bye.